Live NFL trivia every Wednesday night on Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern. Come show off your football knowledge for a chance to win cash prizes. Check the link in the description to find out more. And now, on with our feature presentation. There are tons of friends that have played in the NFL, and that's gotta be an incredible feeling. When you not only get to live out your dream, but you get to be alongside your best friend and get to share your dream with them, that's amazing. The odds of making it into the league are so slim anyways, so for that to happen is great to see whenever it does. And if you get to play on the same team as your best friend, even better. That seems like the dream scenario, right? Two best friends playing in the NFL on the same team and working toward the same goal of winning a Super Bowl. Most of the time, getting to be teammates with your best friend is awesome. But in 1989, that was the last thing that quarterback Tony Eason wanted. He did not want to play on the same team with his best friend because he valued the friendship too much, and was even willing to sabotage and ruin his entire NFL career just to protect him. How far would you go for your best friend? Well, that's the question that New York Jets quarterback Tony Eason had to ask himself after he was acquired by the team. And this is the story behind the bizarre end to Tony Eason's career. Before I talk about the incident in question, we need some context to understand who Tony Eason is, how his career was going up until that point, and why he would later be acquired by the New York Jets, which is what caused the drama in the first place. Our story begins in 1983, when the New England Patriots drafted the Illinois quarterback in the first round of the NFL draft. This was the vaunted '83 draft, arguably the greatest draft of all time for quarterbacks, and Eason was the fourth of those quarterbacks selected. We'll talk more about the fifth guy taken in just a bit, because he will play a critical part in our story down the road. As for how Eason's career with the Patriots was, well, let's just say it was a bit of a mixed bag, and that's putting it mildly. On one hand, there were some incredible moments with the team. There was the 1984 season, where in just his second year, he finished third in the AFC with 23 touchdown passes, and only threw a pick on 1.9% of his passing plays, which was the best percentage in the league. There was 1985, where he guided New England to the postseason and led the team to their first Super Bowl appearance in franchise history, thanks in part to an AFC Championship game performance against the Miami Dolphins, where he threw 3 touchdowns and just 2 incomplete passes. And there was 1986, where he had the fourth best passer rating in football and somehow got a vote for the MVP. Genuinely have no clue how that happened, but it did. On the other hand, there were some incredibly ugly moments. Of course, when you think of Eason, the first thing that probably comes to mind is arguably the worst performance by a quarterback in the history of the Super Bowl. You think of Super Bowl 20, where he got benched after going 0 for 6, finishing the game with a passer rating of 39.6, which is exactly what your passer rating would be if you did nothing but spike the ball into the ground on every single play. You have everything after 1986, where he lost his starting job to Steve Grogan, the man who Eason was supposed to replace. And you have his struggles with staying upright, particularly over the first 4 years of his career, where he was sacked over 10% of the time and got sacked 146 times despite starting only 41 games. The Pats were hoping when they drafted Eason in 1983 that he could be their quarterback of the future, but by the end of the 1980s, they were ready to move on. In 1989, Eason got another chance to start under center for the Patriots. He got what seemed like his last chance to make a name for himself in New England. It did not work out. While the Patriots won their first game against the Jets, in a game where Eason had a passer rating just slightly below 100 and threw 2 touchdown passes, the next 2 games would be losses where the offense played lethargically and where Eason would struggle heavily. In Week 2, a 24-10 loss to the Miami Dolphins, Eason only completed 51% of his passes and got sacked 7 times. And in Week 3, a 24-3 loss to the Seattle Seahawks, once again Eason only completed 51% of his passes and threw for just 147 yards, averaging a mere 4.4 yards per pass attempt, while throwing no touchdowns and 1 interception, taking 3 sacks, and posting a passer rating of 50.9. When the lone touchdown scored by the Pats over those last 2 games was in the fourth quarter in complete garbage time, you know it's just not working out. Eason was replaced by Doug Flutie and then Steve Grogan, and would never play for the Pats again. The 1989 season was a rough one for the Pats, and after 7 weeks, they were 2-5, with their season pretty much shot. General manager Pat Sullivan was annoyed with spending all this money with no results, so he targeted now the fourth-string quarterback, Tony Eason, toward the end of November. Sullivan gave Eason 2 options. Option 1 was to take a 50% pay cut. Option 2 was to be placed on waivers and never play for New England again. Eason got a contract worth over $1 million in 1989 and $1 million in 1990, and that was a ton of money back then, let alone for a fourth-string quarterback. So it makes sense why the Pats didn't want to pay him a high salary anymore if he wasn't going to produce or do anything. Eason decided to take option 2, and did not want to take a salary cut. With that, Eason was placed on waivers, and to his surprise, the team that claimed him was New England's division rival. The team that claimed Eason was the New York Jets. This stunned Eason, as the Jets were not at all on his radar. However, the Jets, much like the Patriots, were having a really bad season. Many Jets fans consider 1989 to be one of the worst seasons in franchise history, and it's not hard to see why. Through 8 games, the Jets were 1-7. They'd scored 132 points, which was the third worst total in the AFC. And starting quarterback Ken O'Brien was struggling to get anything going, as in his last 5 games, he threw no touchdowns and 4 interceptions while taking 25 sacks. And Eason did not want to join the Jets. The reason why? It had to do with Ken O'Brien. And it might not be the reason that you think it is. You would think that playing with your best friend would be amazing, especially if both of you play the same position. But that doesn't really apply at quarterback. At every other position, you can have that dynamic duo, and you can have that thunder and lightning. Quarterback, on the other hand, is an entirely different animal. Only one can play at a time. Tony Eason knew that if he joined the Jets, that it meant in all likelihood that Ken O'Brien could be pushed out of a job. He knew that it meant Ken O'Brien could be hounded by the ruthless New York media, and that O'Brien would continue to get booed until Eason replaced him. And Eason did not want to see that happen to O'Brien, especially since the two men were best friends, dating back to college, when Eason's brother and Ken O'Brien were roommates at UC Davis. Eason valued that friendship so much, and he was willing to end his career in the NFL over it. When the Jets claimed Eason off of waivers, Eason flat out said that he wasn't going to report to the team. He wasn't going to do that to O'Brien. As his agent Leigh Steinberg said, that friendship is one that Tony prizes and cherishes. Tony doesn't want to be brought into competition with his best friend. Steinberg said that it had nothing to do with money, and this was not a negotiation tactic. I mean, Eason was already making over $1 million. It was entirely because of his relationship with O'Brien. It even got to a point where Eason and the Pittsburgh Steelers were in talks about getting a deal done, even though the Jets owned his rights, so whether that was necessarily allowed, I'm not sure. It got so ugly, in fact, that the Jets had to issue an ultimatum to Eason. On November 2nd, they told Eason that he had until November 7th to change his mind and report to the team. If he did, then this would all be water under the bridge, at least as best that it could possibly be. If he didn't, however, then the Jets would suspend him without pay for the remainder of the season, making him ineligible to play with any team for the rest of the 1989 season and possibly ending his NFL career. Since I'm not sure any team would be running to sign Eason in 1990, considering his lethargic play and the stunt that he pulled with the Jets. At this point, Eason had to make a tough choice. Do you continue your NFL career, or do you possibly harm your relationship with your best friend? In the end, he chose option 1. And the reason why he chose option 1? Ken O'Brien intervened. Initially, Eason stood his ground and held his position. He was not going to potentially jeopardize Ken O'Brien's career just to further his own, and even missed out on his weekly salary of close to $70,000 when the Jets took on his former team, the New England Patriots, and he was not with them. Right before the deadline given in the ultimatum, however, Eason had a change in heart. There were a few reasons why Eason had this change, and why he ended up joining the Jets, making this whole week-long holdout just a blip in NFL history. Eason said that the choices in terms of continuing his NFL career were somewhat limited, and that in all likelihood, he wasn't even going to be with the Jets in 1990, so this was just a temporary arrangement that wouldn't matter in a few weeks. However, the main reason that Eason came back was because O'Brien called him up after the Jets claimed him on waivers, and O'Brien told Eason that there would be no hard feelings. While we don't quite know the exact details of that conversation, it probably went something along the lines of O'Brien having no problem with whatever happened, that this wouldn't impact their friendship in the slightest bit, and that Eason would be an idiot to sabotage his NFL career and $1 million just for the friendship. After hearing O'Brien's side of things, and after realizing that he would hold nothing against him if he joined the team, Eason decided that it was time to end the holdout and report to the New York Jets. So with all of that in mind, let's just recap where we are in the story. The fourth-string quarterback on the Patriots is making over $1 million, and is cut by the team and claimed on waivers by the New York Jets, who have a lethargic quarterback of their own in Ken O'Brien. However, Eason and O'Brien are super close, and are best friends with each other, to the point where Eason doesn't want to cause O'Brien to lose his starting job, and will sabotage his own career to make sure this happens, even to the point where he got the Pittsburgh Steelers involved, even though the Steelers don't own his rights and couldn't do anything about it. And only after Eason and O'Brien talked things out, and only after Eason lost $70,000 in the process, did Eason finally decide to report to the team, realizing that the friendship would not be impacted by this at all. So that raises one final question. How the heck did this bizarre saga end? The second half of 1989 for the Jets from the quarterback perspective was incredibly bizarre, and that's putting it mildly. There were many reasons why Joe Walton got fired at the end of the season, but this whole mess was one of them for sure. Here's just a brief summary of what happened the rest of the way. Ken O'Brien remained the starting quarterback, with Tony Eason being inactive for the first 5 weeks that he was with the team. However, toward the end of the season, O'Brien got injured, and it looked like Eason was about to get his first playing time with the Jets. I don't think anyone knew what was going on, because while Coach Walton said that Eason was ready to go, Eason completely disagreed, saying, "I think I could execute a few plays, but it would be very basic." Always some encouraging words to hear from your starting quarterback. Eason started the first half of the Week 15 game against the Rams, before Walton decided to put O'Brien in for the second half. Even though the game was completely meaningless, even though O'Brien was hurt, and even though O'Brien was scheduled to get surgery later in the week. You can imagine the backlash that move got. Eason closed out the season with a 37-0 loss to the Buffalo Bills, where he threw an interception and got sacked 3 times, then played sporadically throughout the 1990 season in the backup role, before never playing in the NFL again afterwards. Safe to say, it was an absolutely bizarre end to his NFL career. For those who remember Tony Eason for his days with the Jets, this might be the incident that comes to mind, because it was a waiver claim and a holdout so bizarre that the odds we see anything like this happening again in the near future are pretty slim. Best friends have done a lot for each other, but the lesson here is that a best friend who's willing to go the lengths that Tony Eason did to protect Ken O'Brien is definitely one worth keeping. It was good that O'Brien was able to talk some sense into his friend and tell him that he was crazy, while at the same time appreciating the gesture. Because if he didn't do that, then in 1989, it is highly likely that Tony Eason would have traded everything in his NFL career for the friends he made along the way. Get your official Jaguar Gator 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot, and be sure to check out Twitch every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at JaguarGator9 and subscribe to 60-second NFL History on YouTube. To see highlight videos of players throughout the history of the NFL, subscribe to JG9 Highlights. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters helping with the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.